Look, I think, and yeah, for those of you on the call that I've had a chat with over the journey, I think, I've, especially the past couple of years, I've probably been fairly vocal around the fact that it gets harder and harder to sell the DMF when, the DMF was originally created so that you could sell out the family home, buy in at 70% of the median house price and pay that 30% at the end. That was the original sort of methodology around the DMF. And I feel that as an industry, we've probably gone to median house price, if not higher, in a lot of areas. So we definitely try to ensure that from a sales price, we're sticking it somewhere around that 70% of the median house price, to enable that conversation around the DMF to be able to help sell that. And then looking at it going, okay, well, if that's the sale price we want to achieve, looking at what the refund is to the outgoing resident, and then sort of what that spend is and what does that look like. So, there's, and again, I've seen over the last 19 years, different occasions where, an operator might spend $150,000 in a refurb, but only increase the price by $70,000. It just doesn't make sense. So you need to go through a process and make sure that you understand, what your ROI is, but also to ensure that you're future proofing your unit for further down the track. So really look at it, and if you've got a unit that's at 10 or 12 years or 15 years, whatever the case may be, and understanding that, yes, whilst above the bathroom might look great, the kitchen might look great, but are we at risk of having waterproofing fail in the next couple of years? And you don't want to be having to pull up tiles, re-waterproofing bathrooms while the resident lives there and having to move them out. So there's a whole range of factors that we look at in terms of not just what that product looks like and how you're competing with with your competitors in the market, because consumer expectations have shifted, and what was considered possibly a luxury inclusion 5 years ago now is almost standard across the board. So looking at what our product looks like, how it's competing in the market, but also to how do we make sure that we're future proofing that unit and ensuring that the experience that the resident has throughout their entire journey with us is a really high quality experience.
Yeah. And Jolly, are you seeing this with your clients coming back to you in the sense that when they come to you with unit or units multiple ready for you to go in and scope up or confirm pricing on how you work, that they've got a very clear vision for where this one refurbishment or reinstatement sits in the scheme of the wider village? Are you seeing that broader lenses being taken, or are you still finding operators are dealing with you on a kind of a transactional one-to-one basis with some of their product on the ground?
I'd say the majority are more transactional. They just say, "Well, this is right for a refurb. This is right for a reinstatement." Some of the operators are looking at trying to get serious uplift and compete with, I suppose, the newer facilities that are getting built, because a lot of these villages are in great locations, and can be a lot better. But laminate bench tops, the stone is the same price as laminate now. So we often get operators saying, "Oh, we can't afford stone. We're just putting laminate in." I said, it's the same price. If you think it's a benefit, you should be able to sell these units for more, because you're going to put in sheer blinds and you're going to put stone tops in, because it doesn't cost any more than what you were doing. So it's not every village, but it's certainly a lot of them. A lot of the older ones are the unders and overs. So you've got mobility issues and you've got stairs in those older villages, but the ground floor units can certainly be set up to be probably better access and egress, widening doorways and setting up bathrooms with better turn circles. So you can certainly look at different villages through different lenses. We've certainly helped some of our operators completely change the configuration of units, because most of it are not structural changes internally. And when you cut a slab up, you get the engineering and you get a building permit, but it's a relatively simple process. There's no planning or DA required for that sort of change.
Yeah. And just by way of kind of putting together a bit of a playbook for engaging someone like yourself, Jolly. So, I'm an operator. I've got one unit or a couple of units. What information are you looking for me to present to you to really set you up for success, in the sense that you can get a handle on what the unit is today, what it could be tomorrow, and really come with a tight scope to deliver on. Have you got like a standard list of documents you say, if you want to get the best out of me, drop this in my lap and we can take it from there? Or are you still finding that the level of documentation you're being presented with is varying across the sector?
The documentation is pretty poor generally from a building point of view, but because we've done so many of these units now, we know what the cost is. It is a pretty competitive space still. So yeah, the documentation could be better. Some operators are fantastic, give us full elevations of all the joinery, they've got demo plans, electrical plans, but the vast majority don't. They have a sales document and the plan's not to scale. But we know it's about 85 square metres. It's 1.5 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms. So the prices are pretty stable from that point of view. They might vary in more rural areas where it's a bit more expensive. Some of the operators say they want to leave the money in the village, in the towns. You know, if you're in inland New South Wales, they say, look, we want to leave the money there. We don't want to use Sydney builders and Sydney trades. And we work with them and say, well, here's the cost difference. You know, here's the time difference. And it's not, and there's no problem with using rural trades and leaving the money there, but it might take a bit longer. It's sometimes a little bit more expensive, not often, but it definitely takes a bit longer. So we're there to work with them.
And that's a really interesting thing in the sense of, even though, you know, an operator might be dealing with you in your capacity, if they've got that desire to want to continue to invest in the local towns in which they're located, you've kind of got the flexibility, it sounds like, in your world to be able to make that happen. And then what do? You just sit across as like quality control and project oversight, do you?
Pretty much. Look, yeah, there's some towns where there are just no trades. You know, like you go out there and there's just not trades. But most towns, there are some of the trades there.
Yeah.
So, you know, like you can't, bench tops are normally coming from a city. You can't, there's no stone fabricators out in Burke. But, you know, there's a plumber and an electrician that's really good. But almost everyone else comes from the city. So you can certainly tailor it, and you've really just got to plan. Again, it'll take a little bit longer to coordinate those jobs, but it shouldn't take much longer.
Yep. I've had a really technical question coming I've been kind of building towards, and you might need to take it on notice, both, if that's fine. With regards to you starting on a job site, is there a level of insurance, Jolly, that you have to take out before entering the job site? Do you need to provide certain insurance documentation to operators? So the question is, this is a specific one from South Australia, but it might be similar in other states. Are refurb works considered commercial or domestic? And do we need to pay for insurance for each refurb? So that's a question that's come through. You might need to take it on notice. Or Mark, I know you've got some South Australian stuff that you might want to comment on. But if you're not 100% sure, we can always research and get back to Michael, who asked the question.
No, I can answer it. Every state is slightly different, but everyone is covered. You definitely need insurance on every refurbishment. But in New South Wales, the village operator covers the insurance. So we don't obtain insurance certificates in New South Wales. I know in Adelaide and Victoria and Queensland, the builder does provide warranty insurance, but it's generally deemed non-structural insurance. So non-structural, but it's still an insurance certificate.
Excellent. All right. Hopefully that helps, Michael. If not, let us know after the fact, and we'll come back to you.